Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and in this video I'm going to share some information with you on the lovely Astragalus plant. Now the species I'm going to talk about today, this is the most commonly used in medicinal herbals, is Astragalus membranaceus. And from the research I did, and I've kind of known this for a while, but I didn't realize how many different species there were. But anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000. Most of the research I did indicated around 2,000 different species, but I did find a couple of resources that indicated there could be up to 3,000 different species of Astragalus. So the one that is most commonly used in modern medicinal herbals, blends, teas, tinctures, all of that, is Astragalus membranaceus. So when you're identifying plants, especially ones to use in your own medicinal herb garden or when making your own remedies, make sure that they are properly identified. Now, Astragalus is indigenous to China, Mongolia, Korea, but it has now been cultivated and used in places all over the world. Now, it does love temperate climates, where it can have a season where it goes dormant. And this is a perennial plant that you can plant. It makes a beautiful addition to your flower garden, even though it really doesn't fit in with gardens that tend to be more wildflower-like. It doesn't, I don't know too many people who have put it into places that have lots of beautiful rows with perfectly cultivated roses and different things. Astragalus kind of fits a little bit better in more of a natural, kind of a wildflower garden. It has these beautiful yellow flowers, but I've also seen Astragalus with purple flowers, pink flowers, but the ones that I've mostly seen are yellow flowers. And it, like I said, is a perennial. The flowers and the flowering tops will come back every single year. But of course, the part of the plant that you use medicinally is the root. And if you're going to plant this to use medicinally, it does take 2 to 3 to 4 years for the roots to get really established and in a position where you can harvest them and use them for your own benefit. Now, I've never personally grown Astragalus in my garden, even though this is something that would thrive because of where I live and the climate that I have, because it does like to have that dormant season, like in the winter. It likes to rest. The roots, what happens is, this is very common in root medicinal plants, is that during the winter and, the fall and the winter, all the properties of that are powerful will settle into the roots. And this is pretty common. So during the spring and the summer, when all of the focus is on growing the stems and the leaves, and with Astragalus, it is in the legume family. So there are these seed pods. In fact, a really interesting thing about Astragalus, this is kind of a quirky historical fact, is that the seeds which are in these seed pods have been used and dried and used in like ancient times as dice. So they would, put different markings on them and different symbols, and they would use them in different games for and use them as dice. So if you've ever grown Astragalus and you've pried open a seed pod, you would know that that's true. Now, the information that I share with you is not meant to be medical advice. The information is meant to educate you, entertain you, and to give you some food for thought when it comes to using plants and plant medicine in your own life. Now, Astragalus has many, many health benefits. And one of the favorite things that I love about it is that it's a powerful adaptogen. In fact, this is something that we have in a couple of our tinctures. And these were tinctures that were formulated by my dad. So the first one is E-Star, which has Astragalus in it. And then we have it also in a beautiful blend called Daily Vitality. So both of these blends have different herbs in them, but Astragalus plays a starring role because of all the massive health benefits. Now, as you know, an adaptogen is something that helps your body handle stress, provides energy, balances hormones. This is something that I absolutely love to consume, not just in tincture form, but in a tea. In fact, if you buy Astragalus dried roots, you can actually get them in little strips or you can get them in little chunks. And I've used both. In fact, I love having a little bag of organic astragalus chunks or chips or, long little kind of beautiful little twigs, if you will, or not really twigs, they're slices of astragalus root. And you can put them into your tea. But what you need to do with roots like this, especially when they're dried, is you need to let them steep a little bit longer where you're actually making a decoction. So the difference between a decoction and an infusion is that a decoction needs to sit for longer. It needs to steep for a long time and almost kind of simmer so that it can get all those really good medicinal benefits out of a dried root. And this is very common with medicinal roots, especially if they've been dried. So if you're going to be adding other things like more delicate, like flowers and leaves and maybe some stems, you can add those later after you've let your roots sit and kind of go on a low, slow, not really a boil, but just kind of in a low, slow heat so that you can get all the benefits out. So when you're doing an infusion or a tea, you're going to only let it steep, the different teas that you're making for say 3 to 4 minutes, sometimes 5. I do know that in the morning when I'm making up my teas, I will almost let it turn into a decoction, but I'll pull it off the heat. I'll put a little bit of lid on it. And sometimes I don't get around to consuming my tea until it's been 15, 20, sometimes even 30 minutes. And I might need to pop a little bit more heat on it, especially if I'm after a nice warm cup of tea. So astragalus has a ton of medicinal benefits besides its adaptogenic properties. So I'm going to go through this list, which I totally love these things. So if you think about an adaptogen, like I said earlier, I really want to focus on the properties that it brings, which is energy. This is something that I experienced when I first started using it when I was in my 30s. And just because I knew what it did. And here's the thing about astragalus tea. And I think it tastes really, really good. It almost has like a vanilla graham cracker kind of taste. It's just rich and a little bit subtle. And I think it tastes delicious. But I know people who don't like to drink astragalus tea because they don't like the taste of it. So I think it's interesting when we are all on this planet, all trying to thrive and use herbal remedies and herbal medicine, how our taste buds are so different. But for me, astragalus tastes absolutely delicious. And what I think that means my body really enjoys it and really craves it. It's the same with taking a bitter like valerian or even something really strong with a lot of oils in it and tannins like lomatium. I think all of those taste delicious. So I think if there's things that you maybe aren't a super huge fan of, put them in a tincture, put a little bit of water in the bottom of a cup, throw your tincture in there and just chug it down. So if astragalus is something that you look into, maybe try it out once as a tea. Make sure that you get the chunks instead of the powdered, because then once it's oxidized, it does lose some of its potency after a while. But this is something that it's actually better if it's in chunks or in strips, the way that they slice the astragalus to dry it. So one of the things that I really love, in fact, in China, this is the #1 herb that's used for diabetes control and helping to balance blood sugar. So, definitely has a lot of power and a lot of use for thousands of years. And it's in Chinese herbal medicine. Astragalus is one of the superstars there. It's heart protective, so cardioprotective. It's really good for your immune health. In fact, astragalus is something that the space program has been using for a long time, quite a few decades actually, to help protect their astronauts and their immune system when they go into outer space. So this is something that's really, really good for your immune system. It's got anti-inflammatory properties. It's also got antiviral properties, and in particular, anti-flu or anti-influenza. It's a lung tonic. It's great for your kidneys, powerful antioxidant properties, so anti-cancer. And one of the things that I love is anti-aging. In fact, what I did when I formulated my Glowing Vitality, my skin serums, I infused astragalus into an oil, and it's one of the herbs that's in all of our Glowing Vitality skin serums. So it's one of those things that is so good for so many things. The list just goes on and on and on. But I would say the most powerful, what it's mostly well known for, is its adaptogenic properties, its immune function, and blood sugar. So there's some things that I would really suggest you take a look at if you are looking to add something that's a delicious tea, easy to add. Now, as usual, if you are on certain medications or even any medications, I would always suggest that you get with a functional medicine doctor so that you can be guided properly. In fact, I would say if you can find a good naturopath who's familiar, not just with all these herbal remedies, but what the interaction is with different medications. So, learning about these herbs is really, really awesome and really powerful and a lot of fun as well. So I'd like to know what you think about Astragalus. Are you familiar with it? Have you used it? Do you grow it in your garden? This is something that I am seriously tempted to add to my garden this year, because not only do I have a beautiful flower garden, but I have a medicinal herb garden, and it would be super fun to dig out an Astragalus root and then slice it up and dry it, and to be able to use something like I do with a lot of things that grow in my garden, but to use something like this from my garden in my own teas and in my own things that I like to use. So let me know what you think about Astragalus. Are you familiar with it? Do you love it? Or is it something you've never, ever heard of? But thanks for tuning in today, guys, and we'll see you next time.